The end. You mean to tell me that those primitive bipeds actually managed to achieve faster-than-light travel? High Commander Zixtal clicked his mandibles in obvious skepticism, compound eyes fixed on the trembling junior analyst before him. Yes, sir. Intelligence Officer Cree stuttered, her antennae twitching nervously as she projected the grainy surveillance footage. And that's not even the most concerning part. The massive holographic display showed what appeared to be a crude vessel of obviously human design, all sharp angles and exposed structural elements, completely lacking the elegant biomechanical aesthetics of proper hive mind engineering. But what caught Zixtal's attention wasn't the primitive design. It was the sheer size of the thing. By the queen's eggs, he muttered. That can't be right. Run the calculations again. I have, sir. 17 times. Kree's voice gained a hint of confidence as she switched to the technical data. That's a single human warship, class designated as Destroyer, according to their primitive communication protocols. Length 2.7 kilometers. Mass, approximately 18.9 million metric tons. And, sir? She paused for dramatic effect. This is one of their smaller military vessels. The command center fell silent. Even the ever-present hum of the biocomputers seemed muted, as if the living machines themselves were processing this impossible revelation. Preposterous! General Vkr'lak finally broke the silence, his carapace bristling with indignation. These are the same creatures who, according to our historical records, once believed that strapping themselves to primitive chemical rockets was the height of space travel. The ones who still use projectile weapons in their ground forces? The very same, sir, Cree confirmed, bringing up another hologram. This one showed a human in what appeared to be their standard military attire. Though I should point out that those primitive projectile weapons they're so fond of, they've managed to scale them up considerably. The next image caused several of the junior officers to step back instinctively. It showed what could only be described as a massive coil gun running the length of the human vessel, easily a kilometer long. Their primary weapon system, Cree continued, her professional demeanor fully restored now that she was deep in technical analysis. They call it, and I apologize if my translation is imperfect, the fuck you cannon. High Commander Zixtal's mandibles twitched. Surely that's a mistranslation. No, sir. They quite literally painted those words along the barrel, in 15 different languages, including perfect hive speak. Cree zoomed in on the image, showing the graffiti-like text emblazoned on the weapon. The humans appear to have a unique approach to military nomenclature. How many? General Vkr'lak demanded, his tone suggesting he already dreaded the answer. Sir? How many ships? How large is their fleet? Kree's antennae drooped slightly. Well, sir, that's where things get interesting. You see, humans don't build ships in what we would consider rational numbers. They don't carefully calculate optimal fleet compositions or follow proper military doctrine regarding force distribution. Meaning? They just keep building them. All the time. Everywhere. They have shipyards on practically every celestial body in their space larger than what they call a soccer ball, which is apparently some kind of ritual combat sphere. They build ships in orbit, on planets, in asteroid belts, and if our latest intelligence is correct, they've somehow managed to build shipyards inside gas giants. The room erupted in protests and dismissals, but Cree continued undaunted. Their production capacity appears to be limited only by their access to resources and their imagination, neither of which seem to have any practical bounds. They've even started building what they call star forges, massive automated manufacturing facilities that consume entire stellar systems to produce military vessels. High Commander Zixtal sank into his command chair, his exoskeleton creaking slightly. This cannot be possible. The energy requirements alone? They solved their energy crisis by accident, sir, Cree interrupted, then immediately ducked her head in apology for the breach of protocol. Sorry, sir, but this is important. Apparently some human was attempting to make their morning stimulant beverage, coffee, I believe they call it, using a modified fusion reactor. The resulting explosion should have destroyed their entire facility. Instead, it created what they now call the caffeine reaction, a self-sustaining energy production method that outputs more power than it consumes. They discovered unlimited energy production while trying to make a breakfast drink? General Vkr'lak's voice had risen several octaves. Yes, sir, and they seemed equally surprised by it. The human responsible, Dr. Amanda Martinez, was quoted as saying, and I quote, "Well, shit, that wasn't supposed to happen. But hey, free energy. Who wants lattes?" The command center descended into chaos as various officers argued about the impossibility of it all. But High Commander Zixtal remained silent, studying the images before him. Finally, he raised a limb for silence. Officer Kree, you said this was not the most concerning part. What precisely could be more concerning than a species of caffeine-addicted primates who accidentally solved the universe's energy crisis and are building warships the size of small moons? Kree's antennae went completely still, a sure sign of extreme distress in her species. Sir, we've intercepted their entertainment broadcasts. Their fiction. Fiction? You mean their imaginary stories? Zixtal clicked in confusion. What relevance could that possibly have? Sir, everything I've described? The massive ships, the impossible weapons, the casual violation of physics? These are their conservative designs. Their fiction. Sir, their fiction makes these look like children's toys. They have thousands, millions of stories about humanity becoming even more powerful. Stories where they build ships the size of galaxies, where they harness the power of black holes for afternoon tea, where they literally punch stars until they explode. But those are just stories, General Vkr'lak protested. Surely they don't... They're trying to build them, sir, Kree whispered. All of them. Every impossible thing they've ever imagined, they're actively attempting to create. And the truly terrifying part? They're succeeding. Not with everything, not yet, but their success rate is... significant. How significant? Remember the fuck you cannon I mentioned? That was originally from a piece of fiction written by a human child. They saw it, liked it, and just built it. Because they thought it would be, and I quote, totally awesome. High Commander Zixtal stood abruptly, his full 3-meter height imposing in the confined space. Show me their territory, their empire. We need to know what we're dealing with. That's another issue, sir, Kree said, pulling up a galactic map. They don't really have an empire, at least not in any way we understand. They're just everywhere. They don't expand systematically. They don't establish proper supply lines. They just go places, decide they like them, and stay. Or not. Some humans live in massive city ships that never make planetfall. Others build habitats inside asteroids. We found one group living in a hollow they carved into a pulsar's magnetic field. A pulsar's... Zixtal's voice trailed off. Why? Why would they do that? According to the residents, and again I quote, the view is amazing and the rent is cheap. The room fell silent again as the implications sank in. These humans weren't following any known rules of expansion, warfare, or even basic physics. They were just doing things because they could, because they thought of them, because they were bored. Sir, Kree said quietly, there's one more thing you should know, about their response when they detected our surveillance probes. What did they do? Zixtal asked, dreading the answer. They invited us to something called a barbecue. They said, and I'm reading this directly, "Hey bug dudes, we saw you checking us out. Want to come over? We're firing up the grill this weekend. BYOB, but we've got plenty of burgers. P.S. Those probe designs are pretty sweet. Mind if we take a look? We've got some ideas for improvements." High Commander Zixtal sat back down, all 4 of his primary limbs trembling slightly. They saw our most advanced stealth technology, and their response was to invite us to a casual meal? Yes, sir. They also attached construction diagrams for something they call a super soaker and suggested it might be fun at parties. Our weapons division is still trying to figure out how it works. The principles seem to violate several laws of hydrodynamics. Recommendations? General Vkr'lak asked weakly. Kree's antennae waggled in what her species' equivalent of a shrug. Honestly, sir, I suggest we accept the invitation. Because from everything we've learned about humans, if we don't go to them, they'll definitely come to us. Probably bringing what they call potato salad, and asking if we want to see their vacation photos. And if we decide they're a threat, if we choose to engage militarily? Sir, with all due respect, they're already treating this like a social call. Do we really want to see what they do when they take something seriously? The command center was quiet for a long moment before High Commander Zixtal reached a decision. Officer Kree, prepare a response accepting their invitation. And ask them what this BYOB means. We should at least attempt to follow their customs. Already done, sir. They sent back a message saying bring your own beer, but not to worry because they've got plenty of craft brews they want us to try. They also asked if any of us are allergic to shellfish, and whether we'd be interested in joining their interstellar fantasy football league. Fantasy football? I've assigned a team of our best analysts to decode that one, sir. So far, they've all requested transfers to different departments. As the command center began preparing for humanity's first official contact with the Hive Mind Collective, Officer Cree allowed herself a small moment of unprofessional behavior and checked her personal communication device. The humans had already sent her 14 friend requests, 3 party invitations, and something called a LinkedIn connection. She had a feeling the galaxy was about to become a much more interesting place. In her private notes, which would never be shared with her superiors, she added one final observation. Humans are impossible to understand through pure logic or military analysis. They operate on a system that seems to be equal parts scientific genius, and what they call, hold my beer and watch this. They are simultaneously the most terrifying and most entertaining species we have ever encountered. May the Queen preserve us when they discover our search history. And somewhere, in a cozy orbital habitat decorated with fairy lights and vintage Star Wars posters, a human teenager was already working on a design for a ship that could tap dance through a supernova, not because it was needed, but because nobody had told them it was impossible. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was probably for the best. After all, as humans like to say, the future is gonna be lit, fam. The Hive Mind Collective was about to learn what that meant, whether they were ready or not. What do you mean they're already here? High Commander Zixtal's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. Officer Cree, who had somehow acquired a human baseball cap with the words, Space Force because why not, emblazoned on it, consulted her datapad. Well, sir, apparently after sending the barbecue invitation, they got, and I quote, super excited and decided to pop over to say hi. Pop over? General Valthak's carapace had taken on a distinctly pale hue. How did they even find our homeworld? We never disclosed its location. About that, sir. Cree adjusted her cap nervously. They followed our probe's quantum signature back through 11 dimensions, 4 of which they invented during the tracking process. They said it was, like a really fun puzzle, and asked if we'd be interested in their new quantum scavenger hunt app. The massive holographic display suddenly flickered and was replaced by what appeared to be a human entertainment feed. A cheerful voice boomed through the command center. Hey, Bugs! Sorry to crash the party early, but we got so pumped about meeting you guys, we brought snacks. The image stabilized to show a human in what appeared to be a Hawaiian shirt covered in pictures of various Earth insects. Behind him, a fleet of impossibly large ships hung in space, each one decorated with festive lights and what appeared to be giant party streamers. Is that their battle fleet? Someone whispered in horror. No, sir, Cree replied, checking her rapidly updating datapad. These are apparently their party boats. They left the military vessels at home because they didn't want to seem aggressive. The human on screen continued speaking, gesturing enthusiastically. So we figured, why wait for the weekend? We brought the barbecue to you. Check this out. The camera panned to show what appeared to be a gas giant in the process of being converted into a giant grill. We're calling it the Mega Weber 9000. Should be hot enough to cook burgers in about 10 minutes. Hope you guys like medium rare. High Commander Zixtal stared at the display in mute horror. They're terraforming a gas giant to cook food? Actually, sir, Cree interjected. According to these specifications they just sent, they're not terraforming it, they're just using it as a heat source. The actual grilling surface is apparently a repurposed Dyson swarm they had lying around from a previous project. The human's voice boomed again. Oh, and we hope you don't mind, but we brought some games. Anyone up for giant Jenga? We converted an asteroid belt into playing pieces. Don't worry about the gravity calculations. We brought our own portable gravity generators. They run on something we call diet soda. Still working out the physics on that one, but hey, it works. The command center erupted into chaos as various officers tried to process the implications of portable gravity generators powered by carbonated beverages. General Valthak had gone completely still, a common stress response in his species. Officer Cree, Zixtal managed to say, please tell me you've at least figured out this fantasy football thing they mentioned. Cree's antennae drooped. Sort of, sir. It appears to be some kind of probability-based simulation sport that operates in parallel dimensions. They've offered to let us join their league, but the entry fee is something called a six-pack, and we have to participate in something called a draft party. And what exactly is a draft party? Based on the information they've shared, it involves gathering in someone's man cave, some kind of ritual space, consuming large quantities of these six-packs, and making increasingly questionable decisions about imaginary sports teams while eating something called wings. The human on screen had apparently overheard this conversation. "Oh man, you guys have never had wings? This changes everything. Hey Jimbo," he yelled off screen. "Fire up the emergency wing synthesizers. Code red, we got wing virgins here." There was a flash of light outside the command center's viewport as what appeared to be an entire section of the human fleet rearranged itself into the shape of a giant chicken wing. "Sir," one of the junior analysts reported, "they're transmitting something called buffalo sauce recipes on all frequencies, and they're asking if we want to join their TikTok channel." High Commander Zixtal turned to Officer Kree with what remained of his dignity. "You mentioned earlier that we shouldn't want to see them when they take things seriously. What exactly did you mean by that?" Kree gestured at the ongoing spectacle outside. "Sir, this is them being casual, being friendly. They turned a gas giant into a grill and an asteroid belt into a party game. For fun. They invented new dimensions just to find our address. They power their gravity drives with soft drinks. Now imagine what they'd do if they were actually trying to accomplish something." As if to emphasize her point, the human fleet had begun arranging itself into increasingly elaborate shapes, accompanied by something they were calling a light show, that appeared to be powered by carefully controlled supernovas. "Should we be concerned?" General Vkr'lak had finally found his voice again. "Honestly, sir, I think our biggest concern right now should be whether we have enough parking space for all their ships, and..." She checked her datapad again. "Whether we're prepared for something they call karaoke night. Apparently, it's non-negotiable." The human on screen had put on a paper hat shaped like a bee. "Hey guys, quick question. How do you feel about conga lines? Because we brought a quantum tunneling dance floor that can accommodate up to 6 million participants simultaneously. Also, anyone interested in learning the electric slide? It's like a temporal physics experiment, but with more hip movement." High Commander Zixtal slowly sat down and did something he'd never done in his centuries-long military career. He laughed. It started as a small clicking sound and grew into a full mandible-shaking chortle. "Officer Kree," he said finally, "send a message to the Queen. Tell her that the galaxy as we know it is over. The humans have arrived, and they brought party games." "Yes, sir. Should I include their request to teach her something called the Macarena?" "Why not? It seems we're about to enter a new era of galactic history. One with more, what did they call it? Vibes, sir. They called it good vibes." "Yes, that, more good vibes." He stood up straighter. "Well, we are still representatives of the hive mind collective. If the humans want to party, we shall party with the full dignity of our species." Outside, the human fleet had begun spelling out, "Welcome to the neighborhood," in letters made of controlled fusion reactions. Someone had added a smiley face using what appeared to be a miniature quasar. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was definitely for the best. After all, as the humans' latest transmission stated, this party is going to be absolutely legendary. The Hive Mind Collective was about to learn exactly what that meant. May the Queen preserve them all, and maybe teach them how to do the electric slide. 3 standard galactic hours later. The situation had, somehow, gotten even more impossible. They want to do what with our sacred ceremonial chamber? Queen Zalara's pheromone signature radiated pure confusion. Officer Kree, now sporting both her Space Force cap and a shirt that read, "I met aliens and all I got was this quantum-entangled t-shirt," consulted her increasingly bizarre notes. "They're calling it a rave, Your Majesty. Apparently, it involves converting the chamber's bioluminescent crystals into something called a sick light show, while playing what they refer to as absolute bangers." The Queen's antennae twitched in what might have been either horror or curiosity. "And our ancient hive mind interface? The one that connects all our consciousness?" "They've already spoken with it, Your Majesty. They're now calling it DJ Hyvey, and have somehow taught it to drop beats. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but the interface seems enthusiastic about its new role." As if on cue, the sacred chamber's crystals pulsed in rhythm to something the humans called dubstep, while the ancient consciousness of the hive mind interface projected equations for sonic harmonics that doubled as dance moves. High Commander Zixtal, who had given up on maintaining military decorum about an hour ago, was attempting to learn something called the robot from a helpful human engineer. Your Majesty, he said between movements, I really think we should consider their proposal about the defense system upgrades. The ones involving the weaponized dance music? No, Your Majesty, the other ones. About converting our entire planetary shield network into something they call a mood lighting system that doubles as a planetary defense grid. Apparently it runs on... what did they call it? The power of friendship and sick drops, Kree supplied helpfully, though they did mention something about quantum harmonics and 11-dimensional resonance fields. The technical specifications are written in emoji. The Queen turned all 4 of her primary eyes toward the massive viewing screen, where the human fleet had arranged itself into what they called a conga line, spanning 3 star systems. Each ship was now trailing sparklers the size of small moons. And they did all this just to say hello? Yes, Your Majesty. Though they did mention this was just the pre-game. They're saving the real party for next week's official diplomatic reception. Do I want to know what they're planning for that? Kree's antennae wiggled nervously. They mentioned something about teaching the local star to sing Sweet Caroline, and they've submitted a request to temporarily borrow our galactic core for what they're calling the ultimate disco ball. Borrow our... They want to use the galactic core as a party decoration? Only for a few hours, Your Majesty. They promised to return it better than they found it, and mentioned something about installing RGB lighting while they're at it. The Queen was silent for a long moment, watching as a group of humans taught a squad of her elite guards something called the Macarena. The guards, to everyone's surprise, were actually quite good at it. Officer Kree, she said finally, in your professional opinion as our chief xenoanalyst, what exactly are we dealing with here? Kree straightened her cap and cleared her throat. Your Majesty, after extensive analysis, I believe we are witnessing a species that has achieved what they call peak party civilization. They have essentially mastered the laws of physics, but instead of using this mastery for conquest or domination, they've decided to turn the entire galaxy into what they refer to as the ultimate hangout spot. And if we were to resist these changes? With all due respect, Your Majesty, I don't think that's possible. Not because they would fight us, but because they've already convinced half our population to join their social media networks. We're now trending on something called Space Twitter. The Queen clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. We're trending. Yes, Your Majesty. Apparently videos of our guards doing the Macarena have gone viral. We have something called clout now. Just then, the human fleet rearranged itself again, this time forming a giant thumbs-up emoji visible from 3 galaxies away. The quantum harmonics of their party music had accidentally created several new forms of matter, which they immediately named after various dance moves. Your Majesty, High Commander Zixtal said, having mastered the robot, and moved on to something called breakdancing. I believe we have only 2 options. We can either embrace this new era of galactic history, or we can spend the next 1,000 years trying to explain to our descendants why we turned down the chance to see a black hole do something called the worm. The Queen looked out at her transformed empire. The ancient hive mind interface was now playing something called Don't Stop Believin', while projecting karaoke lyrics in 15 dimensions. A group of humans had taught the Royal Guard how to crowd surf using anti-gravity fields. Someone had put a giant party hat on the planet's smallest moon. And everywhere, her people were happy, laughing, dancing, learning to do something called air guitar with all 6 of their limbs. Officer Kree, the Queen said with what might have been a smile, please inform our new friends that we would be honored to have them borrow the galactic core for their party. But tell them we have one condition. Yes, Your Majesty? Ask them if they can teach it to play something called YMCA. I hear it's a classic. And so began the greatest party in galactic history, one that would eventually span 3 spiral arms, create 17 new forms of physics, and teach an entire super-intelligent hive mind consciousness to appreciate the artistic value of the Cupid Shuffle. The humans had arrived, and they brought the music. One standard galactic week later, the emergency meeting of the Greater Galactic Council had been called to address what many species were calling the human situation. Representatives from over 300 spacefaring civilizations had gathered to discuss the unprecedented changes sweeping across known space. The Zorblaxian ambassador, a being of pure energy normally known for their stoic demeanor, was practically vibrating with excitement. Did you see what they did with the Crab Nebula? They turned it into something called a wave pool. That's nothing. The Mechanoid Collective's representative chimed in, their circuits glowing in what could only be described as glee. They taught our central processing core to understand something called dad jokes. We've had to upgrade our humor processors 6 times this week alone. The council chamber, normally a place of serious deliberation, had been transformed. Someone, no one was quite sure who, had installed a disco ball made from a compressed quantum singularity. The effect was both terrifying and fabulous. Ambassador Vkr'lak of the Silicon Consciousness cleared their crystalline throat. We're getting off topic. We're here to discuss the humans' impact on galactic society. What did they call it? Their vibe check of the universe. Officer Kree, now officially serving as the Hive Mind Collective's Minister of Human Relations, and sporting a new hat that read Party Planner, because someone has to keep the universe grooving, pulled up her latest report. The numbers are quite striking, she began. In just 1 week, humans have taught faster-than-light travel to 17 previously pre-space flight civilizations because, and I quote, everyone should be able to make it to the party. Converted 3 stellar nurseries into what they call cosmic bounce houses. Established something called an intergalactic food truck festival that somehow operates in all temporal directions simultaneously. Created a dating app that works across species, dimensions, and occasionally alternate timelines. Started a galactic sports league that combines something called basketball with quantum mechanics. The council chamber erupted in excited chittering, buzzing, and various other species-specific expressions of amazement. But what about the serious issues? Demanded the gravionic overseer, their mass fluctuating with concern. What about diplomacy, interstellar trade, the complex negotiations required for— Oh, that reminds me, Kree interrupted, checking her datapad. The humans have apparently solved most major diplomatic crises by introducing something called Game Night. They've successfully negotiated 17 peace treaties over something called Mario Kart. Mario Kart? A simulation of competitive racing that somehow transcends the laws of physics while teaching important lessons about friendship and the proper use of weaponized bananas. The eternal war between the Pyro Collective and the Frost Emperors ended last Tuesday after a particularly intense Rainbow Road tournament. The Council Chamber's AI, which had recently started calling itself DJ Cosmic Chris and insisted on playing something called elevator music between sessions, chimed in. Yo, check this out. Humans just uploaded their entire cultural database to the Galactic Network. They're calling it Space Netflix and Chill, the ultimate collection. Several of the more conservative council members flickered in alarm, but before they could protest, a new transmission appeared on the main screen. It was the human delegation, broadcasting from what appeared to be a party being held in the space between spaces. What's up, council peeps? The human ambassador, wearing what appeared to be a suit made of living starlight, waved enthusiastically. Quick question. How do y'all feel about karaoke battles as a form of conflict resolution? Because we've got this great idea for a new galactic constitution. 3 hours later, the Greater Galactic Council had ratified a new unified charter written entirely in memes, established Taco Tuesday as a universal constant, agreed to convert the council chamber into a combination diplomatic center and laser tag arena, accidentally created a new form of government based on dance-off competitions, learned to do the cha-cha slide in perfect synchronization across 11 dimensions. Minister Kree, the council elder wheezed between dance moves. Your species has had the most contact with humans so far. Tell us, does it ever get normal? Kree adjusted her hat, which now read, Got Rhythm Will Travel, in pulsing bioluminescent letters. Sir, I believe normal ceased to exist the moment humanity decided that physics was more of a suggestion than a rule. Just this morning they taught a black hole to play jazz. And is that a problem? The black hole's quite good, actually. It's planning a concert tour. The human ambassador's voice boomed through the chamber again. Hey everyone! Who's up for cosmic bowling? We found this empty galaxy cluster that's shaped exactly like a bowling alley. As the council members enthusiastically filed out, some floating, some rolling, some shifting through dimensional planes, Officer Kree made one final note in her report. Conclusion. Humanity's greatest weapon isn't their technology, their creativity, or even their inexplicable ability to bend reality through sheer force of will. It's their ability to make the impossible seem not just possible, but like the obvious thing to do on a Tuesday afternoon. Also, they make excellent party snacks. Somewhere in the distance, a supernova pulsed in rhythm to something called disco. A group of traditionally warlike species had started a book club. The Galactic Core's new RGB lighting was programmed to sync with the universal mood. And humanity? They were just getting started. After all, they still hadn't shown anyone their recipe for cosmic s'mores yet. The party was eternal, and the universe was here for it. The end say until the after party.